Asahi is a sad little virgin who might die gooning to his incognito tab. However, everything changes when he accidentally rizzes up 5 baddies who move in with him and compete to become his baby mama. The story begins with Asahi tuning in to his favorite fortune-telling program, where the fortune teller predicts he will have some pretty exciting encounters that day. Asahi wonders what this means, but since he is running late for school, he brushes it off and hurries out of the house. On his way to the train station, he suddenly crashes into a 4-eyed baddie named Aoi and says hello to her tilapia kitty. Embarrassed, Aoi apologizes for making him smell her fish, then runs off, leaving behind her peach cover. After Asahi picks it up for his nighttime gooning, he rushes to the train station, where he boards a train and is surprised to see it empty. Suddenly, a green-haired hottie with lots of jiggle meat named Bai walks in and then sits very close to him. This makes Asahi tense up, and as he tries to control the rhino in his pants, the girl dozes off on his shoulder. While asleep, she starts building plot with his arm, but Asahi desperately tries to break free before he bursts a fat one. In the struggle, he accidentally lands on top of her milky castle, but at that moment, she wakes and angrily plays his head like a soccer ball for getting freaky with her. Fearing for his life, Bro quickly gets off at the nearest station and decides to run to school instead. When he arrives at a staircase, he wonders why his morning is so messed up, and that's when he remembers the fortune teller's prediction. Shrugging it off, he heads down the staircase, but out of nowhere, a girl suddenly trips and ends up using his face as a chair. The smell of her unwashed bunda makes Asahi brick up, and when she notices his Jenga tower, she smashes it and then runs off, calling him a creep. Before long, Asahi makes it halfway to school and is happy to have finally escaped the messy drama. But just then, a cleaning robot approaches and hands him a pink melon strap, calling it trash. Suddenly, a fun-sized baddie named Amelia runs up to Asahi and accuses him of hacking the robot to steal girls' undies. Asahi tries to defend himself, but the crackhead keeps calling him a useless thief until the robot drags her away for smelling like garbage juice. As he continues his journey, Asahi witnesses a hormonal dog wrestling with a boy. But he ignores the freakiness, having had enough for one morning. When he finally arrives at school, he sneaks into the classroom to avoid the teacher, noticing that he is late. However, when he gets to his seat, he realizes that all 4 shotties he had freaky encounters with are somehow in his class. Not wanting them to see him, Asahi quickly turns towards the window. However, the teacher, Bai, who happens to be the same kung fu chick he met on the train, immediately notices and orders him to face the class. Nervously, Asahi turns towards the class but squeezes his cheeks so the girls won't know it's him. Unfortunately, they recognize him as the creep, so they slap his face, leaving behind handprints. During lunch, one of Asahi's homies, Yoshio, questions what he did to the trap queens to deserve such facial reconstruction. After Asahi tells him everything that happened, Yoshio gets jealous because all his life, he had always wanted to get hammered by girls. Meanwhile, in the dressing room, while the rest of the girls badmouth Asahi over the morning's incidents, Aoi insists she doesn't believe Asahi is really the villain they're making him out to be. Later, during sports, Asahi laments that he might die a virgin since the girls all hate him, but Yoshio encourages him to clear up the misunderstanding. After gym, Asahi finds a letter in his locker asking him to meet under the cherry tree after school. Thinking it's a prank, he ignores it and heads to the cafeteria, where he bumps into Aoi, who shyly asks for her silky garment back. As Asahi reaches into his pocket, he accidentally pulls out Amelia's pink melon strap, so Aoi slaps him for hoarding female undies like a freak. Later, when Asahi arrives at the cafeteria, he notices that all the snacks are sold out. While he curses his bad luck, he spots Karin, the girl who sat on his face, and notices she also didn't get any snacks, so he gives her his long curvy banana. He explains that the banana looks beat up because he kept it in his pocket, then someone smacked it. Upon hearing this, Karin recalls striking his charged antenna, and this makes her realize it was the banana in his pocket all along. Embarrassed, she takes the banana and, after slurping it, thanks him. Afterwards, as Asahi gets a drink from the vending machine outside, he runs into Elia, the dog boy, who is being chased by the same hormonal dog. Seeing Asahi, Elia immediately runs behind him, begging to be saved, but as Asahi tries to play the hero, he gets his rear clapped instead. After the dogs run off, Elia thanks him for saving his life, but Asahi just wants the day to be over, so he suggests they forget it ever happened. While heading back to class, Asahi runs into Bai, who notices he hurt his shoulders, so she insists on treating him and then takes him to the infirmary. After treating his injury, she apologizes for attacking him on the train, as she now realizes it was her fault for dozing off on him. Asahi tells her it's fine, but just then Amelia walks in, interrupting their conversation. So, Bai leaves since Amelia insists she can handle herself. When Asahi asks what the problem is, Amelia shyly complains that her oranges hurt from lack of cushioning, so Asahi returns her melon straps. As she quickly takes them, she admits she was wrong to accuse him of controlling the robot, and then apologizes. After school, Asahi prepares to head home, but the letter slips from his bag, reminding him of the meeting. Curious, he heads to the cherry blossom tree instead to confirm if the letter is really a prank. There, he suddenly meets Aoi, and when he asks if she wrote the letter, she confirms it. She then apologizes for slapping him earlier, but Asahi tells her it's fine, and as he returns her G-string, she shyly confesses that she is in love with him. Before Asahi can say a word, she reminds him that, according to legend, if two people become a couple under a cherry tree, they'll share an eternal bond. Hearing this, Bro realizes he's cooked, so he quickly tells her that her Hellcat is exposed, causing her to run off in embarrassment. Later, as Asahi heads home lost in thought about Aoi's sudden confession, he is startled by Elia, who barks at him while pretending to be a dog. After Asahi scolds the dwarf for nearly giving him a heart attack, he asks what he wants, and Elia starts acting all jittery like he pooped himself. Since Asahi isn't in the mood for his nonsense, he stands to leave, but Elia suddenly confesses that he is in love with him. Creeped out by his ditty vibes, Asahi immediately declines and tells him to get some help. Elia tries to convince him that he arcs better than most baddies, but Bai suddenly shows up and drags Asahi away. She hurriedly takes him into a dark alley, saying she doesn't have time to explain, and suddenly bites his neck. Just then, some random men in black show up in the alley, and when they see the couple acting all freaky, they decide to leave them alone. Once they're gone, Bai claims that some washed-up rapper has been asking her out, and when she refused, he sent his goons after her, and that's why she needed Asahi's help. She then apologizes for dragging him into her mess, but admits she doesn't regret it because she is in love with him. As she gets closer, Asahi panics and reminds her that she is supposed to be his class teacher, but Bai tells him she can also teach him deep lessons about adulthood. She then tries to tempt him with her basketballs, but Bro has gooned thrice that day already, so he bolts. As Asahi rushes home to escape the madness, Karin spots him and attacks, dressed like a runaway bride. Trying to ignore the creep, Asahi walks fast, but Karin chases after him and then warns him not to ignore a top model like her. This catches his attention, so he stops, and when he asks if she's truly a model, Karin shows him billboards of her advertising for brands. Even so, Asahi asks why she is dressed like a bride, so Karin explains it's her wedding day. Eager to leave the nutcase, Asahi wishes her the best of luck, but Karin grabs him by the shoulders and excitedly says he is the groom in her wedding. When Asahi asks why she wants to marry him, Karin reveals that it's because she is in love with him. She then drags him to a hotel so they can clap with reckless abandon, but Asahi yells at her for being too thirsty. Asahi then tricks her into closing her eyes so they can say their vows, and once she does, Bro skedaddles faster than Flash. As he continues his way home, Asahi wonders when he suddenly became a Rizlord whom every girl wants to smash. But along the way, he runs into another lunatic soliciting signatures, and when Asahi refuses, she blocks his way and demands he sign. Eventually, Asahi agrees, but he notices it's a marriage certificate, so he immediately throws it away. At that moment, the nutcase removes her disguise, revealing that it's actually Amelia. When Asahi demands to know why she is trying to finesse him into marriage, Amelia says it's because she is dying to taste his oatmeal latte. As they argue, the same demented robot shows up and then starts dragging Amelia's stinky bum shorts with it. While this happens, Asahi quietly slips off and finally makes it home, relieved to have survived the chaos. However, when he opens the door to his goon cave, he sees all 5 baddies on their knees, ready to be creamed on. Creeped out, he shuts the door, believing this must be Johnny Sin's crib, but Aoi drags him inside. While sitting on the couch, Asahi hears a message from his father, informing him that all 4 shawties are his potential brides, and Elia is included in case he ever wants to diddle. The dad then tells him that, from then on, he will have to live with them so he can choose his bride. As soon as the message ends, Asahi protests, saying he doesn't want to live with them, but the girls crowd him, arguing over who will be the first to mouth hug his noodle. Unable to stand the argument, he yells at them to cut it out and get the heck out of his apartment. However, after they beg, saying they have nowhere else to go, he agrees to let them stay on the condition that they don't disturb his gooning time. Later, during dinner, they all try to feed him meatballs, but Asahi screams at them to stop acting like desperate hoes. After dinner, Asahi enters the bathroom to shower in peace, but Karen suddenly shows up, hoping to choke on his load, so he kicks her out like a community hoe. When he finally settles in to have a shower, he notices Amelia hiding under the bathtub and peeping at his Glock, so he drags her out and scolds her for having no shame. Frustrated, Asahi returns to his room without showering, and after checking every corner to ensure none of the girls are hiding, he decides to sleep. However, when he looks up, he suddenly sees Bai stuck to the ceiling like a horror villain and spazzes out. Having grown sick of their shenanigans, Asahi summons all the girls and asks them to get out of his crib. However, when they beg, Asahi decides to leave the apartment instead. After wandering the streets like a game character, he ends up at a shrine where he stares at the cherry blossoms. Suddenly, Aoi meets him there, and when Asahi asks how she found him, she says her gut told her he would be there. She then apologizes for their behavior and even promises they will leave, but Asahi reluctantly agrees to let them stay since he is too much of a simp to throw out free kitties. However, he warns them to stop messing with him, and Aoi agrees. When they return home, he notices the others have already packed to leave, so he asks them to stay, which makes them excited. That night, Asahi notices someone doing some nasty stuff under his bedsheet. When he uncovers it, he finds Amelia desperately trying to press his toe print onto the marriage certificate, so he yells at her to get out of his room. The next morning, he complains to Aoi about Amelia's stunt, but Aoi tells him it's because they all love him. Just then, Karen shows up half asleep, asking for her face towel, so Aoi guides her to where she had carelessly dropped it. After Karen leaves, Bai suddenly appears, asking for her tablet, and Aoi returns it after finding it left on the sofa. Bai thanks her, and after she leaves, Amelia shows up with just a towel, asking for her melon strap. Asahi almost has a heart attack, but Aoi tells her where she can find it, so she leaves. Soon after, Diddy Jr. joins Aoi in writing kanji names on the rice omelet, and Asahi glazes how good he is. Wanting to be praised too, Amelia rushes to the table to write Asahi's name on his omelet. But in her desperation, the brain-dead girl ends up making a complete mess. That day in school, while the teacher lectures on kanji, she calls on Karen to solve an exercise on the board, and Karen delivers it perfectly like a language expert. As the teacher praises her, Amelia grows jealous, and when it's time for the next exercise, she immediately volunteers. However, after proudly writing her answer, the teacher scolds her for being a worthless failure, and the class laughs. Before leaving, the teacher announces there will be a kanji test the following week, and then urges everyone to do their best. However, while the rest of the students complain about the sudden test, Amelia proudly says it's a walk in the park. During lunch break on the school roof, Yoshio confides to Asahi that he is seriously simping for Amelia. He says he finds her cute and loves her never-give-up attitude, but Asahi knows the risless idiot just wants to slide into Amelia's honeypot. Nevertheless, Asahi explains that Amelia doesn't really have a never-give-up attitude, but rather just hates losing. He recounts how Amelia once lost a game of rock, paper, scissors to a television host, and for days afterward, the lunatic tried to learn every cheat code in existence. When she finally claimed to have figured it out, she challenged everyone in the house and even wagered her special pudding, but she ended up losing it and cried like a baby. After hearing this story, Yoshio complains about Asahi living every man's dream, getting pounded by 4 freaky baddies while he is still stuck with his mom. Later that night, while Aoi, Ilya, and Bai do the dishes, Karen grabs Asahi by the hand and asks they wrestle with no plot armor, but Asahi tells her to beat it. He then asks about Amelia, and when he learns she is in her room, he leaves Karen's ugly face behind and goes to check on her. When he gets to her room door, he hears her squealing like she's on cloud 9, which freaks him out. When she continues to make happy noises, Asahi can't hold himself anymore, so he bursts in to check what the heck is happening. However, he is surprised to see kanji writings all over the wall of her room, and that's when he realizes that Amelia had been studying for the kanji test. When she complains about how frustrating studying kanji has been, Asahi then offers to help with some after-school lessons. The next day, after classes, they meet up in the library to study. He then gives her an exercise to test her current level, but even though Amelia proudly claims there's no need for that, he asks her to do it. Afterward, she smugly claims it was easy, but Asahi scolds her for the nonsense and advises her to focus on the basics. That night after dinner, everyone realizes Amelia has once more locked herself in her room. Hours later, when Asahi goes to check on Amelia, he sees her room light still on and realizes she must still be studying even at that odd hour. Even in class the following day, Amelia continues studying her kanji writing, which worries Asahi. After their library lessons that day, he suggests they head home since it's late, but Amelia refuses and insists that he go without her. Asahi then asks why she is so locked into learning kanji writing, and before she replies, he advises her not to go overboard just for a test score. Hearing this makes Amelia snap, and she yells that there's no point in trying if she doesn't get results. Bursting into tears, she says she wants to use his language even though she's a foreigner, and then runs off. That same night, the girls are worried about Amelia, who has shut herself in her room and hasn't eaten dinner, so Asahi decides to check on her. When he enters her room, he finds Amelia curled up like a cat and sobbing. He then tries to talk with her, and at first she tells him to leave, but as he turns to go, she breaks down, saying she hates herself for being too stubborn. Bawling her eyes out, she says Asahi must hate self-centered girls like her, but Asahi tells her that he actually envies and appreciates how hard she has been working. He then pats her on the head and encourages her not to hate herself, but at that moment, Amelia gets a sudden flashback of a boy doing the same thing to her in the past. However, she soon returns to her usual arrogant self and demands that Asahi bend her over instead of patting her head like she is some brat. Her silliness amuses Asahi, so he gifts her an analog kanji card to help her memorize more kanji writing, and Amelia thanks him, saying she will treasure it. Meanwhile, the other girls peek through the door to see if Asahi and Amelia are already smashing. But when Asahi opens the door, they all tumble in front of him and are embarrassed by their actions. As days pass, Amelia gets better with her kanji writing, and to show off her progress, she plasters kanji words all over the house walls. Days later, when they finally take the kanji test, Amelia does her best, and when the results come out, she scores 70%. The rest of the girls are super proud of her, and even though Amelia brushes it off as nothing, deep down, she is grateful to Asahi for helping her with the lessons. During lunch break, Asahi finds a thank you note inside his lunchbox, and this makes him smile, realizing it's from Amelia. He also notices that his name has been beautifully written in kanji on his omorace, and when Yoshio sees it, he gets jealous and curses his miserable life. Several days later, Ilya remembers her father instructing her to live as a boy rather than a girl, and she swears to obey. While reminiscing in the bathroom, Asahi suddenly walks in on her, causing her to freak out. Later that day, the girls decide to hold a raffle, with first place winning a hot spring vacation for two. Even though Aoi is eager to win so she can privately sing an opera on Asahi's mic, she asks Ilya to have the first try. As Ilya pushes the button, she wins first prize, and by some weird coincidence, Aoi and Bai do too. So the following week, Asahi and his babes arrive at the hot spring for some enjoyment. However, when they see the horror mask at the front of the spring, they wonder if they are in the right place. Amelia, though, is excited because she has read about the spring and the hot OnlyFans model who runs the place. Soon after, when they meet the lady in charge of the spring, they are creeped out because she has a face only Bob the Builder can fix. When the freak asks why they are speechless, by lies they are blown away by her beauty. Excited by the compliment, the scarecrow face thanks her and then offers to take them to their rooms. Immediately, Asahi asks that the boys be separated from the girls, which means he and Ilya will share a room. But as the girls protest, insisting they all stay together, the innkeeper ignores their rantings and guides them to their rooms. In the boys' room, Asahi notices Ilya is tense, so he asks if he would prefer to stay with the baddies. Caught off guard by the question, Ilya claims that isn't the reason why he is tense, but that he is ashamed because at night he snores like a faulty generator. But Asahi tells him not to stress over silly things and then playfully spanks his cheeks to cheer him up, leaving Ilya embarrassed. Just then, Karen and Amelia show up to invite them to a game of table tennis, so they all move to the game room. While Asahi and Ilya watch from the sidelines, the girls go at it in a game of table tennis, but after seeing the jiggle effect on their milkies, Asahi wishes they were playing with a different kind of ball. Caught up in the game, Bai decides to show her pro skills, so she smashes the ball hard, which ends up wrecking the entire game room. The ball finally comes to a halt when it hits Asahi in his family pouch, causing him unimaginable pain, and the ripple effect also shatters Karen's clothes, leaving her plots exposed. Later that night, after dinner, the disgusting old freak offers to serve them a tengu platter. When Asahi asks if the hot spring has a tengu, she says yes, explaining that tengus used to live around the spring long ago. When Amelia asks what a tengu even is, Bai calls her a dummy before explaining that tengus are legendary creatures. Aoi also shows her one of the scary masks on the wall, saying that's exactly how a tengu looks. Later, as Asahi and Ilya prepare to enter the hot spring, Ilya worries that Asahi will finally see her bust and realize she's a girl. But when Asahi notices she is lost in thought, he spanks her soft bunda and tells her to hurry up. Ilya complains that she doesn't like getting spanked, but as she turns, she sees Asahi's tiny junk and immediately tells him to cover up that rubbish. Asahi then leaves, asking her to join him, while Elia panics about how to keep her secret. Just then, she notices the creepy mask with a long nose on the wall and hides it under her towel. As she walks inside the hot spring, Asahi is shocked out of his mind to see the massive bulge in her nether region. While Ilya showers, Asahi can't take his eyes off her giant cone and wishes he were blessed with such an asset. When Ilya notices him staring, she gets embarrassed and asks him to stop, so Asahi quickly suggests that he wash her back. Ilya shyly agrees, and while scrubbing her back, Asahi asks why she is covering her front, and this makes her tense up. Unable to give an answer, she quickly changes the subject and angrily demands to also wash his back. Asahi then agrees to let her wash his back, and while she does, her makeshift PP starts poking him in his rear. When he complains about it, she nervously claims it's because she's a guy, then immediately regrets saying it. Meanwhile, the girls are on the other side of the spring, but instead of enjoying their time there, Karen is interested in knowing what the guys are up to. Later, after Asahi leaves for the sauna, Ilya is relieved to finally enjoy some alone time. Suddenly, the wind blows her towel onto a rock, and as she struggles to retrieve it, she notices Asahi approaching and panics, afraid he'll discover her secret. At the same time, Karen and Amelia stack wooden drums to peek into the boys' bath and have a 4K view of their kitty destroyer. Meanwhile, as Asahi steps into the spring, he spots some pipsqueak with exposed assets rocking the tengu mask, and this scares the heck out of him. Karen and Amelia, peeping into the boys' bath, also scream in fear at the monster baddie and end up crashing to the ground. As Asahi runs back into the sauna, Ilya uses the opportunity to retrieve her towel and runs after him. When Asahi sees her, he tries to explain that he just saw a tengu monster, but Ilya suddenly slips on a bathing soap, and as she goes down, her towel and tengu mask go up. A few minutes later, Ilya wakes to find herself in bed with Asahi staring down at her. When she asks why she is in bed, Asahi explains that she passed out after hitting her head pretty badly. He then apologizes for spanking her bunda, thinking she was a boy, but Ilya asks him not to apologize, explaining that she is to blame for tricking him into believing she was ever a boy. When Asahi asks why she did it, Ilya explains that her deadbeat father had always wanted a son, and it was his dying wish that she fake being a boy. When Asahi asks if she'd rather live as a boy or a girl, Ilya breaks down, admitting she always envied the baby girl lifestyle, so Asahi hugs and promises to be her real daddy from now on. He also encourages her to start living as a girl so he can crack without any feeling of remorse. Getting hugged by Asahi triggers a memory from Ilya's past where she sees him as a boy. So, as Asahi is about to leave, she stops him and then thanks him for helping her with her gender problem. The next day, after they return from the hot spring, the girls see Ilya dressed as a girl for the first time and are shocked. When they ask why she is cross-dressing, Ilya excitedly reintroduces herself as Irina, which is her real name. That same day at school, everyone notices Ilya's new transformation, and they can't stop talking about it. While Asahi and Yoshio gist about it, Bai suddenly shows up and tells them to get to class. However, as they are about to leave, she stops Asahi and fixes his tie, making Yoshio pout in jealousy. In class, Yoshio calls Asahi a lucky son of a gun for enjoying the perks of being the protagonist, since his dream had always been to have Miss Giant Cannons adjust his own necktie. Later that day, Bai drinks herself into a stupor and starts acting all freaky like your mom's after 2 tequila shots. Just then, Ilya notices that Bai's bouncy castles are out, and when she mentions this, Bai asks Asahi to drink from her fountain of youth. But the useless virgin does a spit take and refuses the spicy offer. After causing a nuisance, Bai finally passes out on the couch, so Asahi tucks her into bed. However, when he gets to his room to also sleep, he notices someone under his sheet. Thinking it must be one of the girls, he angrily yanks it away, only to see a macho old freak, who knocks him out. The next moment, Asahi wakes to find himself in a dark room, tied up like a victim from 50 Shades of Grey. When he wonders what's going on, the old freak appears on a television and informs him that he is bait to lure an unknown female assassin. As Asahi struggles to free himself, someone bursts into the room, and the old freak commands his men to head to the site of the explosion. When the light comes on, Asahi is shocked to see Bai, who then takes freaky pictures of him tied up for her private nighttime use. After freeing him from his shackles, she hands him baby oil and a vibrating cone to use as weapons before telling him they have to bounce. As they leave the room together, Asahi sees an unconscious dude in the hallway, and when he asks, "By what happened to the guy?" she lies that she met him that way when she came. Suddenly, they're attacked by one of the thugs, but Bai cracks his walnuts, allowing Asahi to knock him out. When another thug shows up, Bai uses her whip to pull him by the leg, while Asahi vibrates his dome until he passes out. To keep Asahi from discovering her abilities, Bai glazes him for being an alpha male, and the dummy smiles proudly. When they reach the elevator, they realize it's jammed, so Bai guesses that an error in the main system must have caused the power outage. So to get the elevator working, she says they must fix it in the control room. Using her bionic retina to scan the building, she discovers the control room is on the 10th floor, one below them, and suggests they head there. Since the door leading to the stairs is also locked, they burst into the control room through the window. After Bai hacks the computer, she resolves the power issue, and the lights eventually come back on. But suddenly, Mr. Macho shows up, saying he has been expecting Bai, whom he calls Bloody Tiger. When Asahi wonders why the big ugly creep just called Bai Bloody Tiger, the dude realizes Asahi knows nothing about her, so he decides to set him straight. Years ago, Bai was an agent who struck fear into the hearts of all the bad guys in the underworld. Countless criminal organizations perished at her hands, and she left rivers of blood wherever she struck. Bloody Tiger was her codename, and the big guy says he wants revenge for his team that Bai wiped out many years ago. Having said that, Mr. Macho attacks, and when Bai tries to stop him, he catches her leg and slams her into the wall. Realizing how dangerous the dude is, Bai screams at Asahi to escape and save himself, but the idiot refuses and reminds her that he is the protagonist. So, as the bulky guy approaches to end his worthless life, Bai tries to save him, but she gets bodied again with a single punch. Refusing to give up, Bai attacks again, and this time she manages to score a punch to his wrinkled face. However, the dude catches her by the leg midair and threatens to rip her thigh apart so he can warm his meat with it at night. At that moment, Bai commands Asahi to hit the switch, and as Asahi presses the button, strings from the turning bed entangle the big freak and restrain him. Bai and Asahi manage to escape, but when they reach the elevator, Bai notices Asahi's bleeding hand, so she rips her short gown and uses it to bandage his hand. She then apologizes for putting him in such a risky situation, explaining that she had always hated her life as an assassin. That was why she left the organization and chose to become a teacher, so she could build a meaningful life. When the elevator door opens, Bai transforms into her assassin uniform and promises to protect Asahi no matter what. On the first floor, more than 10 thugs await, but Bai sweeps into action, taking them down with fast, precise attacks while Asahi remains useless. Not to get him in harm's way, Bai reveals there is an emergency door at the back of the elevator and then tells him to escape through there. When Asahi refuses and insists on fighting with her, Bai fires in his direction, then commands him to leave so he doesn't get in her way. Reluctantly, Asahi agrees, but he freezes the moment he hears a gunshot. Meanwhile, after taking down more thugs, Bai exits the building and breaks down in tears for having shot at Asahi. Suddenly, an explosion nearly sends her to the pearly gate, but she dodges and realizes it's Macho Man, now dressed like a bargain bin Terminator. As she tries to shoot him, her bullets bounces off, and in retaliation, the Terminator knockoff extends his arm to smash her against the wall. He tells her to say her last prayers, but suddenly, a fire extinguisher strikes his hand, forcing him to let her go. At that moment, Asahi shows up and charges at him, but he gets tossed away like a useless fly. While watching Asahi fight for her, Bai suddenly remembers a moment in her past life when he had also defended her against bullies. Back in the fight, Macho Man grabs Asahi by his robe, but it slips off easily, revealing Asahi's body covered with baby oil. As Asahi splashes baby oil on the brute, his robot armor malfunctions, giving Asahi the chance to zap him while Bai finishes the job with a devastating punch. When Bai asks why Asahi came back, he tells her he couldn't abandon his hot teacher, so she suffocates his stupid face in her Oppai overload to show her appreciation. The next morning, when the girls wake, they see Asahi sleeping peacefully on Bai's enormous pillows and crash out in jealous outrage. That night, as Asahi leaves the grocery store, he's unaware that a heat sensor machine is watching him and targeting his jiggleberries. When he suddenly spots the machine above him, the crazy bot tries to drill into his balls, but out of nowhere it gets zapped and explodes. As Asahi wonders what just happened, he sees a mysterious girl cosplaying as a fairy godmother, and that's when he realizes she was the one who saved him from becoming ballless. The next day at school, Asahi tells Yoshio about the fairy girl who saved him the night before, but Yoshio wonders if the last intact screw in his brain has finally come loose. Just then, Karin shows up, demanding that they smash, but Asahi scolds her for always having an itchy peach. Suddenly, something outside catches Karen's attention, and when everyone looks out the window, they realize they're under attack by a giant robot. Aoi immediately recognizes the machine as the torsion castrator, and as everyone starts to freak out, Yoshio shows Asahi a news report on his tablet. According to the newscaster, the huge floating machine is alien technology attacking the entire city. Suddenly, Bai shows up, warning everyone to step away from the window. However, before they can, one of the drilling bots blasts a powerful energy beam at them. Luckily, Bai pushes Asahi out of the way, but Yoshio isn't so lucky, as the beam hits him and attaches a strange device to his waist. As he struggles to get it off, it activates and explodes his little Pete Davidson, and the unbearable pain causes him to pass out. Asahi quickly checks on his homie, and that's when he realizes that his bro balls and pipe are gone. Everyone is stunned, so to prevent further harm, Bai advises them to wait in class for instructions, but Ilya quickly notices Karen is missing. Meanwhile, Karin is on the rooftop, preparing to attack the alien machine, but as she activates her magic powers, Asahi suddenly shows up and catches her red-handed. Realizing she was the fairy girl who saved him last night, he tries to question her, but a strange pink creature suddenly appears, saying there's no time. The pink pixie then promises that Karin will explain everything later, but for now, he asks Asahi to squeeze Karin's fun bags. Shocked to hear this, Asahi protests, but the creature pushes him straight at Karin, and he ends up squeezing her cupcakes more than a P-Hub actor. This energizes Karin, so she blasts the big alien machine with a powerful inferno. However, just when she thinks it's destroyed, she realizes that her attack didn't even leave a scratch. But at that moment, her energy is already drained, and as she tries to quickly get back to the rooftop, she transforms back to herself and crashes into Asahi. The fluffy creature then suggests they retreat for now, so they enter a classroom. There, Asahi asks for an explanation, so Karin explains that it all started when she first moved into the city. On that day, she was working on an outdoor photo shoot when suddenly the bubblegum pet crashed into her. Luckily, she saved it, and because of that, the Pinky gratefully asks her to quickly form a pact with it and become a magic girl. Since it sounded cool, Karin agreed, but now she regrets it, as every night she's been forced into unpaid vigilante duties. After her explanation, the pixel pet introduces itself as Bonnie Blue, a spirit from a planet called Coochie Crusher. Damn! When Asahi asks about the flying robots, Bonnie explains they are monsters called ball takers, whose sole purpose is to snatch boys' wanking devices. It also reveals that more ball takers are leaving the main unit, and soon they'll explode the ghoulies of every male on Earth, making all men impotent. Creeped out by this revelation, Asahi asks how they can be stopped, and Bonnie reveals that the only way is to max out Karen's powers. To do that, Bonnie takes them both to a minivan and then whispers into Karen's ear before vanishing. Upon entering the van, Asahi notices a wall-mounted meter that ranges from 1 to 10, but as he turns to ask what it's for, he sees Karin stripping and freaks out. When he asks what the heck she is doing, Karin tells him she needs his baby gravy to get stronger. When Asahi refuses, Karin angrily peels off her layers, pounces on him, and rips off his clothes. She then urges him to bless her peaches with his king cobra, but suddenly Aoi shows up at the window after suspecting something weird going on inside. Hearing Aoi's voice outside, Asahi tries to scream for help, but Karin shuts his stinky mouth and then pins him to the ground like a weak sissy. Meanwhile, The rest of the girls join Aoi to investigate the van, and when they hear no sound inside, they decide to leave. Now alone, Karin yanks off Asahi's boxers and tells him to get cracking, but Asahi chops the middle of her skull to calm her down. Just then, Bonnie returns, expecting the smashing session to be over, but is disappointed to see they haven't even started. Karin then tries to convince Asahi it's for the sake of saving the world, but the stubborn goat refuses, insisting all the girls are special to him and should save their V-cards for the trap goon who would truly love them. Hearing this makes Karin emotional, and the meter gauge jumps from 0 to 4 instantly. Suddenly, 2 ball takers start ramming into the van, so Asahi runs out of the van with his exposed ding-dong to create a diversion. As the bots chase after him to swipe his Excalibur, Karin's power reaches the max, seeing how much Asahi is willing to sacrifice for her. At that moment, Karin begins to glow, and the immense light emanating from her causes the van to explode and also takes out the bots in the process. Before Asahi's eyes, Karin transforms into Cinderella's godmother, and Bonnie reveals that Karin is now the legendary miraculous magical girl. With her full power now unlocked, Karin takes out a couple of ball takers with precise shots, and then faces off against the final boss of the ball takers. As she blasts it with powerful mystic energy, the machine counters with purple blasts, triggering a cataclysmic collision. However, the machine's energy soon overwhelms her, so Asahi joins her in holding her magical scepter. This increases the surge of their power, making it possible for them to completely obliterate the machine. On the school's rooftop, the rest of the girls witness the explosion, and as a result of the main unit being destroyed, all other ball takers vanish without a trace. This causes all the sausage-bearing losers in the city to regain their mini sausages. With all the balls-stealing bots gone, Karin returns to her boring form, while Bonnie vanishes. As they descend, Asahi thanks Karin with a smile, which triggers a sudden flashback for Karin of Asahi smiling in a similar way. Freaked out by this memory, Karin quickly runs away, leaving Asahi confused. Several weeks later, Ilya and Amelia wake Asahi to inform him about a trip to the beach. The beach trip is planned by Yoshio, who had invited all of them to a private beach owned by his billionaire parents. The girls are thrilled about visiting the beach, but Ilya is more excited since this is her first time at the beach. Soon, the wheels driving them to the beach arrive, but as Yoshio waves to signal their location, he gets run over by the speeding car. Shortly afterwards, when they arrive at the beach, they realize they will be staying at a 5-star resort, which excites the girls. When Ilya wonders how rich Yoshio's parents must be to afford such luxury, Asahi tells her that Yoshio's folks must be drug lords. By then, asks if it's okay to leave Yoshio behind, but Karin reminds her that the driver said Yoshio will be fine after the nasty accident, even though the idiot broke 2 of his ribs. After changing into their bikinis, they all rush to the beach, and while Karin and Amelia play in the water, Ilya is afraid to go in. But Asahi assures her that he will save her if anything bad happens, and this makes her feel more confident. For hours, the girls have fun in the water, and when they decide to take a break, Karin suddenly discovers a wooden sign that reads, "Swimsuits aren't allowed on the beach." When the others see the warning sign, they suspect Yoshio and his parents must be gooners. But they also figure it must have been Yoshio's plan all along to see their assets. However, since they are the only ones at the beach, the girls throw both caution and their plot armor to the wind. Asahi is then forced to put on a horror mask to prevent him from seeing things his mini plot gun can't handle, even though he protests the violation. Taking advantage of this, Ilya suggests they play a game where they run from a blindfolded person, and everyone agrees. So Asahi starts chasing after the girls like a creep while they run from him. However, the game soon turns deadly when Asahi leaps high to catch Ilya, and in her attempt to escape, she punches his sack and ends his bloodline. When the sun finally sets, they head back to the villa, and even though Asahi is still pissed that the girls made a mockery of him, Ilya is glad that they made special memories. With all of them together this way, by wishes they could stay like that forever, and Asahi agrees before walking ahead of them. However, after walking quite a distance, Asahi turns to check on the girls, but he suddenly notices no one is behind him. Panicking, Asahi calls out the girls' names, one after the other, and when he gets no response from any of them, he rushes to the villa, hoping to find them there. However, when he gets to the villa, he finds the place completely empty, and when he tries to call any of their lines, Aoi suddenly shows up. When Asahi asks about the others' whereabouts, Aoi convinces him they are the only ones there, making it seem like Asahi is going nuts. She then suggests they make dinner, and even though Asahi still believes something is wrong, he volunteers to help her. While making dinner, Asahi notices he isn't himself and that something must be wrong, and while thinking about this, he accidentally breaks some plates. Aoi then helps him pick up the broken pieces, but Asahi refuses to let her do it alone, so he also joins. As they pick up the broken pieces, they brush their hands, but Asahi quickly apologizes and leaves. But Aoi stares at the finger that brushed against Asahi's, and as she tries to fix it in her pinky holes, Asahi's phone suddenly rings, interrupting the moment. When she checks the caller and realizes it's Yoshio, she ends the call to avoid Asahi talking to anyone. Later, while Asahi grills meat on the balcony, Aoi slices beef like she has beef with it and doesn't even care about the blood messing up the counter. Just then, Yoshio calls in again, but this time, the crazy girl doesn't just end the call, she stabs the phone and then tosses it in the bin. When Asahi asks if his phone rang, she denies it and then tells him it must be his brain playing tricks on him. Later that night, Asahi notices the clock on the wall is broken, but Aoi finesses him into believing that time doesn't matter when they are together. After dinner, as they chill on the balcony, Asahi suddenly gets a flash of memory of the other girls, but before he asks about them, Aoi quickly suggests they take a walk on the beach, and he agrees. She leads him to a beautiful cherry blossom tree, but Asahi wonders how the cherry blossoms can even bloom at that time of the year. While staring at the tree, Aoi tells him that she loves him, explaining that he might have misunderstood her previous confession, but she has loved him for a long time. As she gets closer trying to convince him to stay with her, Asahi remembers the other girls, but since his brain is messed up, he has scrambled memories of them. When he asks Aoi about them, she insists that none of them matters anymore and then pushes him to the ground. She then tries to kiss him, but Asahi still gets flashbacks of the time he spent at the beach with the girls, so he insists on knowing where they are. Suddenly, the wind gets stronger, and as the cherry blossom leaves swirl around him, Asahi remembers a night in his past life he spent with Aoi staring at the stars in the sky. That memory quickly becomes reality, but this time Aoi tells him they can't be together again, and after she warns him not to come there again, she runs off. Asahi tries to stop her, but suddenly error messages fill the night sky, and as he wonders what the heck is going on, the world around him disintegrates. The next moment, Asahi wakes to find himself in his bedroom. Realizing he is late for school, he quickly rushes to leave, but when he gets to the living room, he notices the girls aren't in the house. Thinking they must have left without him, he bolts out, ignoring his mother calling after him. Soon, when he arrives at his class, he realizes none of the girls are inside. Instead, he notices Yoshio now looks like a failed rock star, and when he asks where the girls are, the ugly fool just laughs and says he can't remember any girls. Shocked to hear this, Asahi rushes out of the classroom to search for the girls, and when he reaches the cherry blossom tree, he realizes it's green and without any blossoms. As he stands there wondering where the girls might be, a four-eyed girl named Yoshino suddenly approaches and promises to tell him everything that happened. Desperate to know, Asahi follows her to a downtown lab, where she takes him to her office and asks him to sit. As Asahi sits, she examines his brain and realizes his brain waves are normal. She then asks if he remembers her, but Asahi says he doesn't remember flat girls. So to trigger his memories, she shows him a document on her tablet about her organization recruiting artificial intelligence testers. This sparks Asahi's memories, making him recall months earlier in his room when he volunteered to be one of the testers. He also remembers being accepted into the program, and that was the first time he spoke to Dr. Yoshino on a FaceTime call. Still, Asahi complains that these memories don't explain the girl's disappearance, so Yoshino explains that until the day before, he had been living in a virtual reality. She tells him all the hot chicks he had been living with were artificially created beings. Finding it hard to believe, Asahi laughs, calling her the clown of the century, but Yoshino tells him he is the bigger clown for thinking real babes want an ugly loser like him. Asahi then asks how it's possible for bots to feel and even gawk his pipe, so Yoshino reveals that the girls are next-generation bots. She explains that the first bots created were unable to process human emotions, so to give them human-like emotions, they needed an experiment where bots interacted with humans. Upon hearing this, Asahi realizes his past months had been nothing but an experiment, and the girls he thought he had finally bagged were just bots. As memories of his time with them flood his mind, Yoshino reveals that everything had been going as planned, and the results from his experiment had been impressive. However, everything collapsed the day they went to the beach, when the fake Yoshio they had planted as their observer had a terrible accident, forcing them to call everything off. She assures Asahi that he is now back to his sad and miserable reality, but Asahi refuses to accept it. He grabs her by the collar, demanding she bring back his girls, but Yoshino yells at him to accept the truth, and seeing the seriousness in her face, Asahi breaks down, realizing she isn't joking after all. Suddenly, a black-haired girl named Obukata bursts into the office to warn Yoshino that the boss is on his way and then scolds her for bringing Asahi in. However, before they can hide him, the chief enters and, on seeing Yoshino, he angrily reminds her that she was suspended for behaving like a crackhead. So for disobeying his orders, he fires her and demands she leave the premises at once. Yoshino then leaves the building with Asahi, but outside she tells him there's still much he needs to know. While having coffee nearby, she reveals that 3 years ago one of their researchers, Izawa, made a major breakthrough in how humans and bots interact. Later that evening, Asahi walks under the rain, still trying to wrap his head around his new reality. He remembers Yoshino telling him that Izawa had a daughter named Ai, whom he loved dearly, and that she had been Asahi's best friend when they were little. They played together, did everything together, and as they grew up she always defended him whenever he was bullied. After a while, her father quit the lab and devoted himself to personal research. Working alone, he advanced his theory of bots possessing emotional reactions similar to humans. But tragedy struck when his only daughter fell seriously ill, and soon after, she died, leaving Asahi heartbroken. Saddened by the loss, the doctor copied his daughter's brain data before she was buried. While staring at Ai's grave, Asahi falls to the ground and bursts into tears as he finally realizes that it was Ai's memories and data that had been implanted into the girls. Over the next couple of weeks, the entire technological system of the country experiences a sudden disruption, making it difficult for people to access their phones. While staring at an advertising screen, Yoshino notices a fleeting reflection of Aoi, which makes her realize that Aoi is responsible for the disruption. Meanwhile, at home, Asahi tries his best to forget about the girls and continue his sad life with his mother. At the same time, the Cavendish company in charge of the bots tries to gain access to the satellite controlling them, but all their efforts prove useless. The bots have taken full control of the satellite, and when the chief wonders what else can be done, Izawa suggests calling in Yoshino. The proud chief, however, warns her never to mention Yoshino's name again. One of the technicians warns that if the situation continues, the worst case is that they might need to dispose of the entire satellite. Later that day, Izawa FaceTimes Yoshino to brief her on the disaster unfolding at the labs and reveals that the bots sent a message she managed to decode. Back at Asahi's home, as he stares at Ai's necklace, remembering their time together, he suddenly gets a message from his mother, informing him that someone has come to see him. Soon, Yoshino shows up in Asahi's room. Since it's her first time in a boy's room, she starts checking under his bed for a Playboy magazine. But Asahi isn't in the mood for nonsense, so he picks her up like an action figure and demands to know why she wants to see him. She says she has been worried about him and is glad to see him acting normal, but Asahi tells her to save the caring vibe for the idiot cracking her at night. Seeing that he isn't ready to be teased, Yoshino confesses that the reason she came is because she needs his help. She then begs him to return to the virtual world, explaining that they have a problem, but Asahi breaks down, saying she is demanding too much of him. As Yoshino tries to convince him, he bursts into hurtful tears, telling her she is reminding him of a painful memory he is trying his hardest to forget. He remembers Aoi's last words at the beach, when she said they couldn't be together and warned him never to return. Watching him crash out, Yoshino reveals that Aoi was the first bot created in Ai's image, and the rest of the girls were adjusted after her. She explains that by spending time with Asahi, Ai's consciousness buried deep inside Aoi awakened, which may have caused Aoi to go berserk. She then reveals that Aoi is the cause of the country's network disruption, and even though it seems resolved, she fears it will happen again. Since the satellite housing all the bots' data is refusing outside connections, Yoshino believes Asahi is the only one who can access it. This theory is based on the decoded message the satellite transmitted, which reads, "I want to see you," and Yoshino believes it must be Aoi's message directed at Asahi. Suddenly, Asahi's little fluffy robot starts acting crazy, and as Asahi tries to control the menace, it emits a bright light that shows dark images of the girls. When the girls hear Asahi's voice, they try to show themselves to him, but the faulty signal transforms them into 2D babes. This makes it difficult for Asahi to recognize who is who, and when Yoshino tells them they look like pixel characters, the girls freak out, then transform back into their original forms. The girls are happy to see Asahi because they thought they would never get to enjoy his milkbone ever again. Bai then explains that Aoi had wanted to log them out of the system. However, before she could, Amelia sensed the irregularity, so they all hid where the disruption wouldn't reach. Corinne brags that she was responsible for hiding everyone using her magic, but Amelia shuts her up and reminds her that she was the one who noticed it. As they start to argue, Bai reminds them that time is running out, so Amelia quickly tells Asahi that he needs to stop Aoi and save her. When Asahi asks what they mean, Bai explains that Aoi has been struggling with emotions she can't handle, and this is making her lose her mind. They all say they miss Asahi and beg him to come save Aoi, but just then Yoshino gets a FaceTime call from Izawa, who informs her that the company is about to run an erasing program on the satellite. Right after she says this, Asahi's fluffy robot starts to shake, and the girls' holograms suddenly disappear. Just then, they notice thick smoke in the city, and as the power goes off, Yoshino worries that this might lead to even greater damage. She then asks Asahi to come with her, explaining that he needs to quickly see Aoi. She reveals that if they don't act fast, Aoi and the rest of the girls will disappear forever. Since the satellite has an emergency backdoor, Yoshino explains they must use it before the company activates the eraser program to wipe out all bot programs. Noticing his hesitation, Yoshino leaves but vows never to give up as long as there's even a slight chance. Now, alone, Asahi sits on his bed replaying Yoshino's warning that the girls might be gone forever. As memories he shared with the girls flood his mind, he also remembers the little time he shared with Ahi, his childhood crush. He wishes he could see her again, and this fuels his resolve, so as Yoshino gets ready to leave, he immediately stops her and says he is coming too. When she asks why, he says it's because he can't just give up, so Yoshino tosses him a helmet and speeds fast and furious across the street. With all electronic self-driving systems down, the roads are clogged with terrible traffic, but Yoshino maneuvers her way to the one place that has a machine powerful enough to run the satellite. Soon after, they arrive at a condo, and as they go in, Yoshino explains that it used to be Ahi's father's beach house, and where he also used as his lab. Since his death, she has been responsible for maintaining the place, which is why she has access to the security. When they reach the advanced underground lab, Yoshino turns on the system, but Asahi asks why she is still interested in the experiment since her boss fired her. Hearing this, Yoshino recalls a day before the experiment began when she asked Aoi if she would ever want to try something new. After cracking her brain for a minute, Aoi replied that she would want to fall in love and get smashed by real guys and not machine languages. In the present, Yoshino finally realizes that this must have been the reason why Aoi went berserk. After activating the signal, Asahi prepares to enter the virtual world, but Yoshino warns him not to get carried away and get distracted by virtual milk bags. She also cautions that Aoi might try to trap him in there, but after looking at Ahi's pendant, Asahi assures her that he is ready. As he lies down in the capsule, Yoshino warns him to be careful and then reminds him that the mission is to save the girls. In the next moment, Asahi finds himself inside the Matrix, only to realize that his fluffy pet is there with him. When he picks it up and asks why it followed him, the pet reveals itself to be Yoshino, who explains that it's her way of monitoring him inside the virtual world. Just then, Asahi notices a wall built with error signs, and as he wonders how they can get past the wall, cherry blossoms suddenly swirl around him. The blossoms then transform into a butterfly, and as he follows it, it shows him a button capable of breaking through the wall. As Asahi presses the button, the defense wall shatters, and he enters the virtual world. Suddenly, his fluffy pet begins to vibrate, and before his eyes, Yoshio pops out of it with his Omega Glizzar exposed. Asahi is freaked out by the punk's sudden appearance, but Yoshio squats and starts checking out Asahi's mighty drilling machine. At that moment, a cleaning robot approaches, yapping about logging out targets. As it squishes away Asahi's fluffy pet, Yoshio screams for them to run, warning that if they're caught, the bot will forcibly log them out of the system. They are then attacked by the hormonal dogs, and as they try to escape, they're surrounded by numerous cleaning bots threatening to log them out. While desperately searching for an escape route, Asahi hears the girls' voices emanating from a nearby waterfall. At that moment, Yoshio gets caught by the dogs, but Asahi saves him and together they dive inside the water. The water splashes them out through a portal, and they find themselves in a room with the girls standing above them. Asahi is excited to see them, but as they stand, the girls are creeped out by their long cucumbers, so they slap them for showing up without any clothes on. Amelia then scolds Asahi for bringing Yoshio along, but Yoshio explains that he is Yoshino and that she has been monitoring them all along in various forms. Since the girls are uncomfortable with Yoshino, she transforms into Bonnie, and the girls immediately warm up to the Pinky. When Bai thanks Asahi for coming to save them, the others also latch on to him to enjoy the warmth of his plot before also thanking him. But Bonnie interrupts the smooching session by reminding them that they need to quickly find Aoi. After Bonnie reveals that Ahi has awakened within Aoi, Amelia explains that they've all been feeling Ahi's memories inside them. She adds that based on these memories, they can tell Aoi wants to see Asahi, but Ahi doesn't, and these conflicting feelings have triggered the chain of events. But to resolve the problem, Karin concludes that Asahi must see Aoi. However, Bonnie warns that they must overcome two major obstacles: the logout programs attacking them and the eraser program. While the girls are frightened, Asahi assures them he is their prince in shining armor, but Bonnie cautions that if he's caught by the eraser program, his brain will be fried. Still, Asahi insists he won't get caught, and after Amelia tracks down Aoi's location, she warns it may be difficult to reach her because she is surrounded by powerful protection. She adds, however, that there may be a secret pathway left open by Aoi to help them find her. As they leave the room on their mission, they pass through a matrix wall and enter another chamber. Asahi immediately recognizes the room as where the macho guy had 50 shades of grayed his cheeks. After Amelia guides them to the lobby, they run into statues of guys putting on weird eye goggles. When Bonnie tries to check if they are alive, one of them suddenly activates and grabs her by the ears. Luckily, she frees herself, and as more of the faceless guys show up, the girls suddenly transform into the female version of the Justice League to smoke them all. Asahi is stunned by their incredible powers, but just then he notices one of the faceless guys about to self-destruct. So, as he saves Bonnie from the explosion, he crashes into a window and suddenly falls into a dark space. They soon find themselves in a mansion, and when Bonnie suggests they find the others, Asahi asks if the girls had been programmed from the very beginning to encounter him. Caught off guard by the question, Yoshino says yes, and this makes Asahi realize that they were also programmed to have feelings for him, and not because he has some divine riz. Meanwhile, as Bai searches for Asahi, her massive jigglies also search for a place to hang, but along the way she encounters some of the faceless dudes, and effortlessly takes down. Eventually she finds Asahi, but she pauses noticing he is having a serious conversation with Yoshino. At the same time, Yoshino explains that although the girls were programmed to fall in love with him, over time they got rizzed up and confused by their emotions. Pleased to hear this, Asahi suggests they continue searching for the girls, but when Bai shows herself, they hear Elia scream. As they rush to investigate the cause of her scream, they eventually find the others, but realize they are under attack by the eraser program. The massive bot then spits purple energy, and this revives the already deleted faceless dudes into brutal deletion programs. This time, they attack in a more coordinated form, and as one of them grabs Bonnie, he tears her to deletion. As another attack, Asahi zaps him back to Pixel World, but when Bai urges him to stay out of the fight since he is human, he insists he must fight and protect his babes. So together they take out several of the faceless dudes, but after they escape inside a church and try to make it past the iron door, Fake Commando bursts out from nowhere to stop them. Having grown sick of his stupid face, Bai beats him like a useless thief and then sends him flying. As Asahi struggles to pull the switch opening the iron door, more faceless dudes show up and even an eraser program. But Bai joins Asahi, and together they manage to pull the switch. At that moment, more mutants show up, and as the girls enter the Matrix, they realize one person has to stay behind to close the door from the other side. Bai then decides to sacrifice herself, and after she thanks Asahi for protecting and teaching her what true love is, she pushes him into the Matrix, but Asahi manages to take her hairband with him. At that moment, he remembers years back when he had protected Ahi from getting bullied, but he got punched in the face for being a simp. After Ahi helped treat his injury, she thanked him with a smile, and presently with the same smile on Bai's face, she tells him that she loves him. As Asahi lands on the other side of the Matrix wall, Bai smashes the control, and while thinking of the memories she shared with Asahi, she solos the mutants. On the other side of the Matrix, Bai's hairband vanishes, and this makes Asahi realize that she has been deleted from the system, so he screams in pain. Meanwhile, back at the lab, Yoshino realizes that she can no longer log into the virtual world. But just then, she hears a loud crash, and when Ubukata suddenly shows up, she realizes the emo-looking girl crashed her car in front of the porch. Ubukata explains that she doesn't really know how to drive a manual transmission, so Yoshino forgives her recklessness and then takes her inside her lab. While explaining the difficulty she is experiencing logging back into the system, Yoshino suddenly gets a notification that Bai has been deleted from the system. Shocked by the news, Yoshino says there's still one thing she has to try and then asks Obukata for help. Meanwhile, after Asahi and the girls mourn Bai's death, Asahi insists they have to keep moving. But Karan blocks his way, and when she accuses him of being callous even after Bai's sacrifice, Asahi tells her that they can't break the deadlock unless they keep moving. He cries as he remembers, by warning him not to stand still but to move forward, but this hardens his resolve to protect the rest of the girls. Opening the next door, they walk into the Matrix, which leads them to a virtual version of their school. As they walk around the school, searching for the next exit, they encounter one of the eraser programs, which blasts Ilya. But Asahi saves her in the most gigachad manner, giving Karin room to finish it off. Unfortunately, Asahi gets injured, so they take him into one of the classes to treat his injuries. After Ilya is done dressing his injuries, Karin glances at the class and then asks Asahi what a real school looks like. Ilya also says she would like to know, so Asahi admits that he hadn't been to school for months. He says he didn't have the energy to do anything or the courage to be friends with anyone since the passing of Ai. Just then, Amelia announces that she has found the next door, so as they climb a couple of stairs heading there, they realize that the stairs are collapsing one after the other. As they begin to panic, Asahi spots the butterfly that had helped him earlier on, so he and the girls follow it, and this leads them through a portal on the wall. After going through another door, they arrive at the rooftop where they spot thousands of eraser programs hovering in the sky. To advance to the next door, Karin suggests someone act as bait to distract the bots, so she and Ilya agree to stay behind while Asahi and Amelia advance. Even though Asahi isn't cool with leaving anyone behind again, the pipsqueaks insist their minds are made up and then take to the sky. As they activate Super Saiyan mode, they work together to destroy a couple of the eraser bots, and seeing how well the girls handle themselves, Amelia urges Asahi they keep going. Reluctantly, Asahi agrees, and once they advance to the next door, Ilya destroys the switch. Meanwhile, Asahi and Amelia find themselves inside a library, and after running through countless bookshelves, Amelia halts in front of one. As she presses a button, the shelves give way, revealing an elevator, and as they get in, Amelia tells Asahi about a memory she remembered from the day he helped her with kanji lessons. Years back, Ai had found a stray puppy and decided to keep it even though her dad warned her that one day the owner might come to get it. Over the next couple of days, she took care of the puppy with Asahi, and they created a bond with it. But one day, the owner came for the puppy, and this left Ai heartbroken. To cheer her up, Asahi patted her head and told her that she did good by taking care of the puppy, and this made her bawl her eyes out. After Asahi patted Amelia's head the same way, she admitted that day was when she learned what real love really is. Meanwhile, as Karin and Ilya rest after fighting off numerous ball takers, Ilya asks when Karin realized she loved Asahi, and Karin replies that it was after they defeated the ball takers. On that day, she also had a memory of Asahi encouraging Ai when she tried to backflip on a pole. When Karin asks Ilya the same question, Ilya admits that it was when Asahi had hugged her and helped with her identity problem. That day, she also had a memory of Ai running away from her father when he offended her, but while she hid, Asahi came to cheer her up. In the present, one of the escape bots suddenly spots them where they are resting, and numerous bots attack. Meanwhile, Asahi and Amelia make it to the final door, but after receiving a message from Karin and Ilya on her headphones, Amelia returns the kanji cards Asahi gifted her. She tells him she doesn't regret that they met and all the time they spent together as a family. Just then, two butterflies appear, and as they pass through a portal on the ground, Amelia tells him that's the secret path leading to Aoi and Ai. When Asahi reminds her that they need to wait for Karin and Ilya, they notice escape bots on the roof trying to break in, so Amelia plays the message she received from the girls on her headphones. Karin tells him that she is fine no matter what happens, and his smile is all that matters to her. Right after she sends the message, she sacrifices herself but manages to take out a couple of bots with her. At the same time, Ilya thanks him for helping her become her true self, and after sending the message, she explodes herself along with thousands of bots. After listening to their final words, Asahi bursts into tears, but Amelia apologizes for how things turned out and encourages him to return to his world and be happy. As the bots ram their way into the glass ceiling, she kisses him, and with a smile, activates the portal underneath his feet, causing him to fall into a dark hole and through the final door. This door leads him straight into the woods, and as he cries his eyes out for the loss of the girls, Amelia's kanji cards vanish in his hand, making him realize she too is now just a memory. Determined not to give up, Asahi walks ahead, and that's when he spots Aoi standing on the shore staring at the waters. When he approaches her, she apologizes for all the stress, but Asahi asks to see Ahi, so she tells him Ahi is deep inside her. Asahi insists he wants to see her, so Aoi cushions his face in her jugs, and at that moment, Asahi flashes back to when he had just graduated junior school. Ahi had met him then, asking why he was sitting alone, and Asahi admitted he was sad because everyone was going their separate ways, but Ahi cheers him up and then asks him to go shopping with her. While shopping, Asahi notices Ahi staring at a necklace, but she says she couldn't afford it because she is broke. So as they leave the mall, Asahi claims he needs to use the bathroom, but when he returns, he gifts her the necklace as an early Christmas gift. She thanks him and then asks him to put it on, and as he does, she gets dizzy and almost collapses, but Asahi cushions her fall. Though she brushed it off as being lightheaded, that evening at home, she collapsed again, and after a scan was done on her, it was revealed that she had advanced cancer and might not live to see the next spring. This news devastated her father, but she cheers him up with a smile, promising never to give up. While she was at the hospital, Asahi visited and offered her a banana as he was worried about her condition, but Ahi assures him that she is just exhausted. On that day, she also asks that they make a pact to see the cherry blossoms, and Asahi accepts. Unfortunately, as her illness grew worse, she applied makeup to reduce the eye patches just so Asahi wouldn't be worried about her. When she couldn't keep up with the disguises anymore, she eventually asks Asahi to stop visiting her at the hospital, but she claims it's because she doesn't want to distract him from his exams. She cried when he left, and even when she was placed on life support, only watching videos of her and Asahi at the cherry blossoms gave her some kind of relief. When she eventually passed on, her hand was on the necklace Asahi bought for her. Back in the present, Aoi shows Asahi a door and tells him Ahi is behind it waiting for him. However, before he walks to the door, he pats her on the head and thanks her for everything she did. As she watches him leave, she thanks him for showing her what it means to be loved, so Asahi bids her goodbye before stepping inside the door. On the other side, he sees the beautiful cherry blossoms, and as he approaches the tree, he spots Ai standing under it. Overwhelmed with emotions, he hugs her, but Ai asks him to forget about her and move forward with his life, but Asahi says he can't because ever since they were little, they had always been together. As he breaks down in tears, he says he had always loved her and regretted not ever spending enough time with her. Tearing up, Ahi admits that she regrets it too and then says she had always loved him as well. At that moment, the night sky disintegrates, revealing a bright sky with green grass. As they kiss, memories of their past life together flood Asahi's mind, but suddenly her consciousness starts to fade. After saying her goodbye, she gives him the special necklace, and as she vanishes, Aoi appears with butterflies in her hand. In the next moment, Asahi wakes in the real world, and somehow Ahi's necklace follows him through. As Yoshino welcomes him back, Ubukata calls everyone's attention to the balcony, and when they get there, they see that the satellite has fallen from space as a shooting star. Ubukata points out that this means the Cavendish Company would surely go bankrupt, but Yoshino couldn't care less about that. Turning to Asahi, they notice the bloody moron is confidently showing them his hard trunk, and this makes Ubukata scream in shock. Years later, Asahi finally makes it to college, but he is still stuck with his loser buddy Yoshio, and while the city is now back to normal, Yoshino has been promoted as chief of the Artificial Intelligence Enterprise. Meanwhile, after Asahi places flowers on Ahi's grave, he returns home to find 5 packages waiting for him. When he tries to check what's inside, Amelia suddenly pops out of the box while the rest of the girls pop out from the rest, now in new bodies and with renewed strength to dance on his disco stick. As they cuddle Asahi on the couch, Aoi arrives also in a new body and rings the doorbell, happy to reunite with Asahi once again. Comment bot girls if you watch this recap to the end, and if you enjoy anime recaps like this, subscribe to the channel and watch this next video.